What's up, Trojans? Back with another New York Giants video. They just dropped the 53-man roster. But before I go over that, I just want to say thanks for all the support on my last video. That video did really well. It was a PUBG highlights video. If you haven't already, go over there, check that out. Give it a like. Just comment, like, nice stuff or something. And, yeah, then come back to this one, finish it. Because we got some news today. The Giants dropped their 53-man roster. It's looking pretty good. Sterling Shepard's back on it, right? I was just going to lead with that because he's like one of my favorite Giants. And I'm excited that he's going to be back with the team. But they did some interesting stuff, and they got rid of a bunch of guys that I did not think they would get rid of. So, yeah, first let me just go over the 53-man roster. And a shock to, I'm sure somehow a couple people, but I don't think anyone I know. Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor will be the two quarterbacks for the New York Giants. Obviously, Daniel Jones is going to be starting. They just paid him over $40 million a year. So, that's what you have at quarterback. At running back, Saquon's coming back, right, because they got the franchise tag thing worked out. Breida is still going to be the backup running back, it looks like. And then Gary Brightwell and Eric Gray, who the Giants drafted recently, will be there as well. There was a conversation at one point, I think, whether they would cut either Brightwell or Gray because both were late-round draft picks. But it seems they're going with both of them for now, and I think in exchange for one of them, they cut a wide receiver because this is where it gets pretty interesting. There's only 6 wide receivers, Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, Jalen Hyatt, Wan'Dale Robinson, Sterling Shepard, and Darius Slayton. I would have thought there'd be 7 wide receivers. They're only going with 6 right now, and I find that really interesting because normally the Giants go through wide receivers really quick, but maybe they're hoping to keep a couple of guys they ended up waiving on the practice squad or something. Who knows? But yeah, and especially with some of these guys' injury histories. Yeah, unfortunately, anyone the Giants have in their practice squad may be coming up real quick. But hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully all 6 of these guys can play the entire season for the Giants. At tight end, Daniel Bellinger, Lawrence Cager, and Darren Waller. Ooh, Darren Waller was actually named a captain. I found that really interesting. But yeah, standard, 3 tight ends. This is what I thought they would do. So nothing crazy here. I'm not seeing anything at offensive line. I'm just going to name the names. Ben Bredesen, Josh Azudu, Mark Lewinsky, Shane Lemieux, Marcus McKeithen, Evan Neal, Matt Parrott, John Michael Schmitz Jr., and Andrew Thomas. Nothing really to note there. I think the starting lineup will be Andrew Thomas on the left tackle, Evan Neal at the right tackle, John Michael Schmitz as the starting center, Mark Lewinsky as the starting right guard. And I believe on the last depth chart they had Bredesen as the left guard, but or maybe it was Shane Lemieux. I'm forgetting who it was now, but yeah, definitely at right guard, right tackle, center, and left tackle. Those are definitely settled. Going on over to the defense, got a bunch of linebackers coming back. Cam Brown, Carter Coughlin, Micah McFadden. A couple linebackers coming back, liking that. Bobby Okereke was actually named a captain as well, which makes sense because I believe he'll be the starting middle linebacker. And normally, that guy's kind of the leader of the defense, unless they go with Xavier McKinney for that role again. That was certainly an interesting thing they were doing last year. But yeah, other than that, Azeez Ojulari, Isaiah Simmons, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Jahad Ward. So, the reason I broke that up was because the last couple guys I mentioned, like Azeez Ojulari, Kayvon Thibodeau, and Jahad Ward, I view them more as edge rushers, and I guess that's not a category with the way they're listing it. But yeah, Azeez Ojulari and Kayvon Thibodeau will more often than not probably be rushing the quarterback, so expect sacks there. Isaiah Simmons, the Giants just picked up recently in a trade with the Cardinals. Isaiah Simmons was actually someone I thought about the Giants getting in 2020 at 4th overall, and unfortunately that would have been instead of Andrew Thomas. So the Giants, Dave Gettleman, 1000% made the right decision there, because we got him anyway. But yeah, the Cardinals ended up drafting him not long after the Giants passed on him, And, yeah, just didn't work out amazingly well for the Cardinals. So now he's a Giant, and all the Giants had to give up was a 7th-round pick for him. I hope he's as amazing as I thought he'd be coming off the draft here now. But yeah, it's awesome that the Giants were able to pick him up, and obviously since you just traded for the guy, why cut him so soon, right? Let him get acclimated and everything, and I think in this defense, with the way Wink Martindale could use him, he could be great. And then onto the defensive line. So this is more your interior defensive line. DJ Davidson, Dexter Lawrence, Raheem Nunez-Roches. I may have pronounced that one wrong. My bad if I did. Jordan Riley, A'Shawn Robinson, Laird Williams. Makes sense. No real surprises to me there. I recognize all those names, and I didn't really see anyone during training camp or anything that I thought would replace any of those guys. Going over to the defensive backs, there's a lot here. Deontay Banks, Dane Belton, Cordell Flott, Trey Hawkins III, Darnay Holmes, Adoree Jackson, Bobby McCain, Nick McLeod, Xavier McKinney, Javarius Owens, again, apologize if I got that one wrong, and Jason Pinnock. It looks like, yeah, they didn't release a depth chart with this, to my knowledge at least, but Pinnock and McKinney will be your starting safeties, McKinney being the free safety, Pinnock being the strong safety. And then if it's anything like the initial depth chart that I looked at before, Adoree Jackson, Deontay Banks, and I think they went with Holmes will be the starting corners, with Holmes being the slot. Cordell Flott would also be in that conversation for slot corner 2, though. And I may have even misremembered Darnay Holmes, but it's Holmes or Flott in the slot, I believe. And then special teams, no surprises. Graham Gano, Jamie Gillen, Casey Kreider. Kreider being the long snapper for punting and field goals. Gano being the great kicker he is. And Gillen being the punter. He has a serious leg, but hopefully he can figure that out, be a bit more consistent. But, that's the 53-man roster. But what's more interesting is actually all of the guys they had to cut. And they cut some names. All right, these are the veterans that they cut, and these kind of surprised me. They cut O'Shane Ximines, who was a 3rd-round pick. They actually cut Jamison Crowder, who they just picked up in free agency. They cut Cole Beasley and David Sills. Now, a guy like Sills will almost definitely be on the practice squad, and if someone goes down, we'll see him in the season for sure. But Crowder and Beasley, that's interesting they would cut them. Maybe Beasley could end up on a practice squad, but I feel like Beasley is a really good wide receiver. I was cautiously optimistic and pessimistic when the Giants picked him up, because I was like, man, they're probably bringing this guy in to replace Shep. I'm glad they went with Shep over him. But then when they came out with the initial depth chart, they had Beasley as the slot and then Shep as the outside guy. And if they wanted to do that, I would have been so cool with it. So maybe they'll give Shep a role in the slot, but I feel like Wan'Dale Robinson's also in that role. So they'll probably have Shep and Slayton be on the outside still. But I just found that to be really interesting, that they would cut those wide receivers. And yeah, like I said, hopefully a couple of those guys are back on the practice squad, along with O'Shane Ximines. That really surprised me. But that's all I got on the 53-man roster. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. I'm really glad Sterling Shepard's back. And, I'm glad there's definitely a couple other names that I thought may have disappeared that are back as well. Like someone like Carter Coughlin. I think he's pretty good. And, yeah, we'll have to see what the actual depth chart looks like at some point. But maybe we'll just have to see who actually starts week 1. But, yeah, 53-man roster, looking good in my opinion. The Giants have made a lot of good moves this offseason. Very excited to see how that translates into week 1 against Dallas. We got the Sunday night game. Giants are starting off in prime time. This can either be really good or really bad. Hopefully it's really good. Definitely excited for the season. I'm excited to see Sterling Shepard out there catching passes for the Giants again. Oh, yeah. But, all right, just a couple other quick things. I mentioned the trade with Isaiah Simmons. Really great move by the Giants. That was the other thing I wanted to really mention. He, coming out the draft, he was supposed to be kind of like an all-around guy. someone that could play like safety, linebacker. He played so many different positions in college. He got like sacks, interceptions, a bunch of tackles, like you name it, he was doing it almost on defense. And then he got to the NFL and he just wasn't, as dominant as I think the Cardinals wanted him to be. But I also think some of that is scheme. Like, you have a guy like that, you want to move him around everywhere. And so I think a guy like Wink Martindale would be able to come up with a really good scheme for him. And I'm hoping that's how it plays out for the Giants. And then one last thing before I let you all go. The Giants did something really funny. Really fun, really awesome, really amazing, wholesome. It was good. They signed Prince Amukamara to a one-day contract so he could retire a Giant. Now, he was drafted in the first round by the Giants back in 2012, back in 2011, because that was the season in which, going into the year 2012, when the Super Bowl game was played, that the Giants most recently won as a Super Bowl. And so he's drafted then. I mean, imagine coming to a team first round, bam, instant Super Bowl. Like, that's got to be amazing, right? No wonder he'd want to retire a Giant. But he was with the Giants for a while. He did a lot of good stuff. I remember seeing him in 2016, which, again, for anyone that's new, that's the first year I started strongly following the Giants. And, yeah, he looked pretty good that year. Definitely helped out what was a good defense that season. And yeah, it was weird that they couldn't reach a deal with him to have him back. And then he went on to like the Bears and a couple other teams. But it's really cool that he was able to just sign a one-day contract to retire a Giant. I think that's really cool. Yeah. So, I mean, the Giants doing stuff like that, man, that's why I love the Giants. I know a lot of NFL teams do stuff like that, but, I don't know. I find that kind of stuff really fun when I hear about it. Just the Giants treating their players right. And that's definitely something I think Joe Shane and Brian Dable have been trying to do. The closest they've come to not doing that is Saquon Barkley, but I do think there may have been a lot of pressure on them to not be the team that overpays a running back. I think a lot of guys in the NFL are trying to find a couple positions to be like, hey, look, we're paying quarterbacks all this money. Someone's got to pay the price. And unfortunately for running backs, it's running backs. It's just the way it is. The way positional values go around in the NFL. That's just going to be what happens, because I don't think there was a market-setting running back contract in the offseason. I think all the guys ended up just getting franchise tagged, or a couple guys signed like very low bar contracts that were like, yeah, just make this like a 1-year deal and I'll try again some other time. Very weird stuff, but with the Giants now set going in about a week and a half now, prime time, Dallas, Sunday Night Football. I'm excited for it, and I think the Giants are going to put on a real show, and I think the Giants are going to do great this season. I'm expecting 10 or 11 wins this season, and I'd be excited, really excited if the Giants can make it back to the playoffs, and I would hope they can go farther than they did last year, but even last year was fun, just watching the Giants beat the Vikings. Unfortunately, the Giants season just had to end to the Eagles. Couldn't be any other team. Of course, it had to be the Eagles, but this year, aside from winning a Super Bowl, the Super Bowl would be beating the Eagles, because that was just kind of embarrassing last year. So hopefully the Giants can go out there and do that. That would be a huge thing for the Giants to do. And, they could get off on a very fast start by beating Dallas week 1. See you guys in the next one.